I've spent the whole of January tracking every single penny that I've spent. And now I'm going to sit down and go through all of that with you, whether I like it or not. You may wonder why I'm doing this video. Well, there's two main reasons. The first reason is just that people are nosy, myself included, and I know I love watching these sort of videos. You know the videos you see where it's called like 28-year-old living in New York City, this is what I spend in a month. They're so interesting and they give such an insight into different people's financial situations. And I think that then helps you reflect on your own financial situations and maybe make tweaks and improvements where necessary. Now, this video is not going to be quite as glamorous as the one I've just mentioned. I'm 27 years old, but I don't live in a New York City or a London City skyscraper. We're not quite on that level yet. The second reason, and perhaps the most important reason for making this video, is because I'm very interested and motivated by this whole idea of reaching financial freedom. And obviously, to reach financial freedom at its very core, you need higher incomings than you have outgoings. That's just basic maths principles. But how do you know exactly how much you're spending, how much you're investing, how much you're saving each month if you don't actually track that? And one crucial thing is not just tracking it once and then being done with it, but regularly coming back and checking in with yourself and seeing exactly how much you have outgoing compared to what you have incoming. And it's not very fun. Honestly, it's quite uncomfortable to actually do a deep analysis into your spending, and it can uncover things that you were subconsciously trying to hide and forget about. But hey, it's important to do that to see exactly whereabouts you are on your journey. And like I said earlier, things that you can improve will be highlighted. So let's get going. I'm going to share everything I spent in January, and this is going to be across a range of different categories from bills, eating out, grocery shoppings, investments, and so on. And then I'm going to share them broken down by category so I can highlight exactly where most of my money's going. So I started tracking this on the 1st of January. And the first thing I did was not very frugal of me at all. But to commemorate the new year, I actually went to Five Guys for lunch, and that cost me £10. On the 2nd of January, I actually went food shopping. So I go food shopping once every single week. And now I live with my partner, which means all things like grocery shopping, bills, rent, etc. That's all split in half. So I'm only going to be sharing what I personally spent. So my half of that amount. Now, I don't really have a budget for my weekly grocery shop. I know roughly what I tend to spend, and you'll see there is sort of an average here once I've shared all these figures. But what I do find is that I do my weekly grocery shop, so a one-off shop every single week for what I need for that week. But then what I find myself doing is that I'll ad hocly spend between the shopping times. And I think this comes down to two things. One, perhaps there's a bit of poor planning there. We're pretty good with our grocery shops in terms of we plan our meals for the week and then we write a list and grocery shop for those things, and we don't really buy outside of our list. But maybe there's some poor planning that means then we have to pop back to the shops with, getting things that we've forgotten. But the second reason, and the main one as to why I do ad hocly shops between my shops, is because I eat a lot of berries. I eat a lot of fresh berries, raspberries, blueberries, strawberries. And if I were to buy enough for the whole week at the beginning of the week when I do the weekly shop, come Thursday, a lot of that stuff has just gone off. It's gone moldy, it's gone mushy, and it's just not very nice. And for me, I'm happy to spend more money on perhaps nicer groceries, healthier groceries, just because I get a lot of enjoyment out of that. And I think health is the most important asset that we have. So I'm going to value that. So the weekly food shop that I did on the 2nd of January wasn't a complete one. It wasn't the norm. And that's because there was leftover stuff from the Christmas period, and quite frankly, just didn't need a lot of things. So because of that, it was a very, very cheap shop. It just involved things like milk, and I think I've got some footage, so you're probably seeing that now. But anyway, my half of that came to £6.13. Fast forward a few days to the 6th of January, and we needed to go shopping again. This time, this was a proper weekly food shop. So this is more of a normal situation. This time, this weekly food shop cost me £19.58. Now, you're probably thinking that a weekly food shop of £40, £20 being my half is quite cheap. And it is. Like a lot of the time, my weekly food shops are more than that. However, what normally happens is we try and go to the shops at decent times to get discounted products. So we really keep an eye out for discounted meat and fish that we can then freeze, because that saves a lot of money over the course of the month. The next time I spent any money was at the weekend on the 8th of January, and we decided to treat ourselves and go out for pancakes and coffee for breakfast. And that was super, super yummy. I wouldn't say I tend to go out to eat that often, but I do really enjoy it as well. So I'm someone that's quite frugal, but also I don't think that needs to come with cutting yourself off from doing anything you enjoy. I just think look over what you can cut down and reduce your spending on. That doesn't mean that much to you, and perhaps prioritize things that do mean a lot to you. Because I would rather be able to go out for coffee and go out for breakfast rather than maybe go out to the clubs or whatever other people spend their money on. So it's just about personal preference, really. Anyway, I paid for this breakfast and the total for 2 people came to $26.62. And on this particular day, the car needed to be filled up with petrol, which is always quite expensive, as we know, and my half of that was $22.59. And lastly, on this fine Saturday, I also spent some money in Savers, which is just a shop here in the UK, and I just needed a few bits, including colour catchers for the laundry and just house products. So on that day, for everything, so the house stuff, the petrol and the breakfast, I spent $51.22. On the 10th of January, I got a KFC for dinner, which I rarely do. I hardly ever have takeaway. It happens about once every, I would say, 5 months. Happened on this day, so I'm being transparent and sharing it. But I got a takeaway, a KFC, and also on this day, I had some top-ups of fruits and vegetables to do, like I was saying earlier. And that came to £15.30 for both of those things. The next time I spent any money was on the 13th, which was the weekly food shop. And my half of this came to $32.92. And then quite a number of days passed where I spent absolutely nothing. But on the 19th, I needed some more fruit, some top-ups, whatever it was, and my half of that came to £1.37. As you can see, I noted everything down in January. Like that bill was £1.37. I could have easily not included it, but the point is that you track everything so you can get a really clear picture, because little spends here and there of the same category can really actually add up, and you don't really notice it until you write it all down and put it into categories that you think, oh my God, I didn't realize I was spending £20 a month on this category where it felt like I was spending £2. You know, you then see it clearer. Feels like I've only just said this, but then on the 20th, so a week after the last weekly food shop, another weekly food shop happened. This time my half came in at $27.76. The next day I had to pay for some top up of a makeup product that I use, but that was only £2.25. On the 23rd I had another ad hoc shop. Can't remember what this was, perhaps some milk, some cream, some fruit, whatever it was. But I also ordered my granddad a birthday present, which I then split the total with my brother. So for those 2 things, I spent $14.27. And on the next day, I had another birthday present to buy. This time I spent £12.50. On the 27th, I did the last weekly food shop of this month. And also there were some sale items on some clothing pieces in Tesco, which I purchased at quite a good discount. This literally never happens. So I'm really surprised it happened in this month, but I suppose January is when there's going to be like sales on things, you know, after the Christmas period. But yeah, I never buy myself any clothing items, and I'm not saying that as a good thing. Like, I do need to buy myself some more clothing items. I just don't prioritize it, and I can't be bothered to go to the shop and try stuff on. I'm just lazy. But on this particular day, I was in Tesco anyway. I saw some products, some clothing products that I liked. So for this reason, this weekly food shop was a little bit more expensive, just because it wasn't just food. So the food products alone for my half was $26.50, and then I spent an additional £12.50 on some reduced clothing items. Speaking about clothing items, my favourite clothing item right now, and the best one by far, is this top that I designed, which says Eat, Sleep, Invest, Repeat. If you like it and you want to be walking around being super cool like I am, then check this out in the description below. It comes in 6 different colours. The last 2 days of this month that I spent any money were the 30th and the 31st. The 30th was a top-up shop. I remember needing some eggs on this particular day, and that came to £6.71 for my half. And then on the day after, I ordered some stuff from Amazon to do with like cooking. I think they were like spray bottles for oil, whatever it was. And my half of that came to £2.35. And that concludes the month of January. But now let's take a look at exactly how much I spent in each category, and we can look at bills and rent and stuff like that as well. So the total amount that I spent in food, so this includes the weekly food shops and the little top-up grocery shops. So this doesn't include eating out. I've put that as a separate category. But just for normal groceries and top-up shops in between the weekly food shops, I spent a total of £131.90 across the month of January. When I first heard that amount, like when I first added it all up, I thought that was quite a lot. But then if you divide that by 4 to get the weekly amount, and then you look at what the average person spends, I was pretty impressed with that, considering this is one category that I'm not really frugal about. Like I was saying earlier, I like nice healthy foods and I'm willing to pay a little bit more for that. So yeah, all in all, I think I'm quite happy with this category. And this category is going to be one of the most expensive on the list today. My next category is eating out, and I've also included coffee into this category as well. You can see that in January, I went out for pancakes, and I also had a KFC and went for coffee on one of the days too. And this came to $46.60. The next category is miscellaneous. So this is anything that just doesn't fit into another category. You know, getting some new clothes, buying people birthday presents, that sort of thing. Ordering them spray bottles from Amazon. Just really random things that you don't really necessarily plan for. And this came to $35.84. The next one is petrol. Typically, we only fill up the car like once or twice every single month. I don't really drive the car very often. I work from home, and typically I only go out to do food shops or on the weekends, stuff like that. So it doesn't tend to be too expensive, and the car that we have is pretty small as well. So in total, across January, my half of petrol only cost $22.59. The next category is monthly subscriptions, and this came out as $66.48 for me across the month of January. So this includes things like my phone, Spotify, Canva, which I use for YouTube thumbnails, gym membership, things like that, things that I spend every single month. Now, the gym membership is £44 of this total 66, whatever I just said. But I started to realize that as much as I value my health and I want to be going to the gym a lot of times a week, realistically, that just wasn't happening. I was prioritizing making YouTube videos. I was prioritizing just doing other things with my evenings after work and at the weekend, seeing friends, whatever. And I wasn't really using the gym very much at all, not to warrant $44 a month. So I actually just took the decision to cancel that based on the fact that I wasn't getting the money's worth. So January would have been my last payment of the gym membership. So from now on, I will have £44 less a month on monthly memberships. And also I save some money here because my phone every month only costs me about £11, £10, something like that. I bought my phone in 2017 outright, so it's quite old now. It's an iPhone 8 Plus, and I just pay for the SIM every month, so really not very much money. I would definitely advise, if you're spending like £50, £60 on a phone every month, maybe think about whether you can cancel that contract or end it when it comes up and purchase a phone outright, and then just get a monthly rolling SIM card, which costs not much, £10 for me, and that's unlimited everything. So that's a pretty good way to save some money. Now for the housing category. So this includes rent and bills for me. This tends to be the highest category for most people, and that's myself included. You know, rent or mortgages, whatever, they're expensive, and bills, we all know, have been crazy right now with electricity and gas bills soaring. But in total for January, my rent plus bills plus everything to do with the house came out to $521.75. So that was for my half. Now that's pretty good, and we'll go through some factors that I think are contributing to my monthly costs not being too much in just a second. So the total that I spent in January came to about £825, and that was for absolutely everything. That was for housing costs, bills, food, going out, subscriptions, literally everything. I tracked every single thing I spent in January, and it came out to £825. And I think that is a pretty average month for me. Like I said, it will be £44 less than that a month ongoing because I cancelled my gym membership. But you never know, maybe I will buy a new subscription that is going to benefit me to replace this. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do definitely think there is value in spending money to better yourself and to better your financial future. And a lot of people miss that. A lot of people like zone in on this really frugal lifestyle and they don't think that they can spend any money. But actually, spending a little bit of money on bettering yourself could really, really pay off in the future. And that's what I always try and remind myself of. Anyway, some months will be more naturally, some will be lower, but 825 for January, I'm pretty happy with. One thing to point out that I've noticed from tracking this is that actually across January, I had 17 days where I spent zero. I spent absolutely nothing. And I think there's a few factors that come into this. And I think the biggest one is that I work from home. So there are a lot of days out of the month where I actually just stay indoors, perhaps go out for a walk at lunchtime. Or see a friend in the evening for free, whatever it may be, but I don't spend any money. And that's a factor that obviously benefits me because I don't have any transportation costs. I don't have to pay for lunches when I'm at the office or anything like that. And that does save a lot of money. And I know that for some people, that's just not feasible. They can't work from home, or some days they have to go to the office and they have to spend money traveling, whatever it may be. But yeah, that definitely helps me save money. The next factor that I think I have on my side here is that I don't have any kids and I don't have any pets. And those two things can be pretty expensive. Also, I don't really drink, I don't smoke, and I don't have any expensive hobbies. Again, that just saves money. And then my living situation, I don't live inside of a main city like London. I live in a 2-bedroom flat or apartment. I split the money with my partner. So yeah, that's probably not as expensive as it could be for some people. But then you could make the argument of, well, you're renting, so you're paying off someone else's mortgage and it would be better financially to have your own home. Yes, I am working towards owning my own home. It's just very, very difficult right now. And I'm just waiting for the housing market to bless me and just be a little bit kinder. Something else I wanted to point out is that I have been out more times than I just went through for coffee, for food, whatever it may be. But I didn't spend anything. And that was just because either someone else was getting the bill or I just didn't spend anything, whatever I was doing that day. For example, I go out for coffee quite a lot with my family, but we just take it in turns to cover the costs. And for this particular month, that didn't happen where I had to cover the costs. So win-win. I also have some other outgoings that I didn't include here. Things like national insurance, taxes, pension contributions. But I just decided that I didn't need to include them because I don't even really see that money. It gets taken out of my wages before they even come to me. On top of this, I am investing each and every month pretty much. I typically invest between 500 and 1,000 every single month. So that is obviously an outgoing as well. I have my emergency fund, which I do add to occasionally. It's at quite a nice amount right now, so I don't put money specifically towards that, but naturally I just let that top up over time too. Like I was saying, this is quite an average month for me, but if you were to look across the whole year, I think my top categories for spending would be housing, food, and trips. You didn't see any money go out for trips in this particular month, but there's months that I pay for a holiday or I do some traveling, and that's something I really value. And of course, you can do that cheap, but it still costs a lot of money. So yeah, some months are higher, some months are lower. I think doing this little self-experiment has really highlighted where I spend my most money. And I think this is really weird, but I think it's also highlighted that actually I am pretty frugal by nature. And perhaps I could allow myself to maybe purchase more. That sounds really weird. And I don't mean purchase more materialistic items, but for example, there's some things that I want that I know will benefit me, some courses that I want to take, things like that. And actually, I probably should value those a little bit more because like I was saying earlier, spending money on bettering yourself is one of the best investments anyone can make. And I really believe that. And I need to live by that and actually do that as well. So I encourage all of you to do this exercise as well. It's quite uncomfortable and yeah, it is quite time consuming to write everything down you spend. You have to keep your receipts, you have to note it down, but it's really, really eye-opening and it's actually really helpful because now I know on an average month how much I spend on certain things. That allows me to know my percentage of spending versus saving, spending versus investing, so outgoings versus incomings. And it gives me more of an idea of how much I can afford to invest each month, spend each month, whatever it may be. It's very, very helpful. So yeah, I put that challenge to you. See if you can do this for a month and see what it can teach you about your own personal finances. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to check out my Patreon, I'll leave a link in the description below. But anyway, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I hope this was interesting, and I'll see you very soon with another video.